Hi everybody, and welcome to this, my first of 3 videos on the Pentax 645 N2. The Pentax 645 N2 is one of in a long line of Pentax medium format cameras. It is an interchangeable lens medium format camera, and what that means is just that the lens can be taken off and a different lens can be put back on, and that it shoots medium format images, which are larger than 35mm. It has a 3-mode meter with matrix, center weighted, and spot. It has shutter speeds from 4 seconds to 1/1000th of a second, plus bulb, flash, sync, and automatic exposure mode. The viewfinder magnification is 0.76x, meaning that what you're going to see in here is 3/4 of the size of what's going to be on the film. It has 92% frame coverage through the viewfinder, which means, let's say that what you're looking at right now is the image you're going to get back on film. 92% means that in the viewfinder you'd lose about 4% on each side, top and bottom. That would be on the image, but not in the viewfinder. The 645 N2 has interchangeable focusing screens, and we'll see in the second video how to change those. And there are 6 different focusing screens you can use. I don't have any of the alternates, but I'll show you how to change it anyway. And the flash on this camera syncs at 1/60th of a second. The Pentax 645 N2 was aimed at the professional market. Really, professionals used medium format back in the film days and through most of the film days. When 35mm came out as the amateur option, or the learner's option, or the hobbyist, whatever you want to call it, option, professionals stuck with medium format and larger. This was a modern medium format film camera with autofocus and all the bells and whistles of a top performing 35mm SLR. The 645 lens system from Pentax is an exceptional system. They're just as sharp as the best performing 35mm lenses, meaning that not only do you have a larger negative, it's just as sharp as a 35mm negative, giving you a lot of ability to enlarge the negatives and also capture a lot of detail in your images. This camera also came with film edge data printing built into it, meaning that every exposure has film data tracked on the edges of the film. This was produced by Pentax in Japan from 2001 until either 2004 or 2006, depending on who you ask. What I can tell you for certain is that by 2006, Pentax was not making any film camera bodies anymore. And I believe that this was the last film camera that Pentax made. Everything else wound down production before the 645 N2. And this was at least available new in stores until 2006. It was preceded by the 645N, concurrent with the MZS, LX, MZ6, and MZ60, and followed by the 645D, although there was a little bit of a gap there. So if you have your 645 N2, let's take a look at all of the different features and buttons and things on it. Here's the top of the camera. We have over here, this is the exposure compensation and command dial. And if you keep it in 0, that means you're going to get a proper exposure. You unlock it by pushing this button down, and then you can rotate it. There are 3 other things over here, D, PF, and ISO. And we'll get into what these do in the second video. We'll see what these do. In the third video, I'm going to do the third video is just about the PF and the D on this dial. PF is Pentax functions, and that's how you set different functions that the camera does behind the scenes. And D is for data printing on and off. ISO, we'll see how to use that in the second video. That's how you adjust your ISO. Here, this switch right here, you can see it moving around. This is the auto exposure bracketing switch, and it allows you to set 3 different levels of bracketing. The white dot right here next to the 0, that is the exposure compensation indicator that lets you know what you've selected on this dial. Here's the flash hot shoe. Over here is your shutter speed selection dial. In A mode, it's locked, but if you push the button down on top, and it's also locked in flash sync. But once you push the button down, then you can rotate the dial to manually select a shutter speed, set it to auto mode, or set it to flash or bulb as well. Here we have the meter selection switch, and the actual switch is this fan-shaped thing here on the side. And you can rotate between the 3 meter modes: spot, center weighted, and matrix. And in the second video, we'll talk about how each of those works and what they do and why it's important to understand the differences. This is the off, beep, on button. It tells you, and then your LCD screen that tells you whether or not you're printing data, what your ISO is, and it gives you information when you change your Pentax functions on this. These are the up and down selection buttons, and these allow you to move through menus and adjust different things. This dial here around the shutter button switches between single exposure, multiple exposure, self-timer, and mirror lockup. And then here, the silver button in the center is the shutter release. And then also right here, just on the back of the grip, is the auto exposure lock button. So here's the front of the camera, and let's take the lens mount off. We'll see more about the lenses in the second video. Here is your depth of field preview lever. So when you push it in, you can see what the depth of field is going to be. I'll show you how that looks with the lens. Set that to f16. This is your lens mount index dot. Electronic data contacts. There's a whole lot of data going from the lens to the camera. The silver part is your lens mounting flange. That's your autofocus screw drive contact right there. This is your lens mount release button. On the side here, we have one of the 2 tripod bushings. This is your multiple exposure dial, and we'll see how to use this in the second video. This is your flash PC port for using an off-camera flash. This is your strap lug connector, and the strap lug just connects in there. And then there's a pin here and a pin for the other one, so that your strap lug can't rotate the whole way around. It gets stopped, and that's really a nice feature if you have a telephoto lens on the end of it that pulls your camera. It keeps it from spinning it around and going out of control. That's very clever. Here we are on the back of the camera. Do I have film in this? I don't remember. Okay, I don't think I have film in this. Doesn't sound like it's advancing. Okay, good, no film. Whew. Okay, anyway, so here's the back of the camera with this is the film back, and on the film back you have the memo holder. And when you get your 120 film and you tear the tag off, the box up top off, you just slide it right in here. This is the film back release, and it's locked in place right now. To open it, you flip that up, turn it 90 degrees, but then to actually unlock it, you have to turn it the distance of this added little line right here, and now you just lift off. And this is your actual film holder, and we'll see how to use this in the second video. It's a clever design, not perfect, but clever. There's the shutter curtain, and it works just like any 35mm SLR shutter curtain. Here are film guide rollers, film guide rails to help keep the film flat on plane. They work with the film back to do that. And then you can see some of the gears and everything that connect with the film back for the auto drive. To mount the film back, again, you put it in place, rotate that down the length of the line. It'll nest itself properly if it's incorrectly, and lock. Also on the back we have over here, it's kind of hard to see with the eye guard, but there's a switch called C and S, and next to it are the letters AF. This is your AF mode button between continuous and single shot. Over here, another button that says AF and then has a dot in a box and then a bracket in a box. That's between single point autofocus and multi-point autofocus. This little cap right here, if it'll come off, is for your electronic remote control that goes right in there. You can also, it's a electronic shutter release. You can also use a standard screw in on the shutter release button, so it's nice to have the option of doing one or the other. Okay, here we are on the bottom of the camera, and here's the second tripod bushing. We've got the serial number here, made in Japan. This little gizmo right here, this is the external power supply port. So if you have one of the external power supplies, you can use that, and that's good for things like overnight exposures, long duration exposures, because the shutter on this will drain the batteries if it's held open. It's also good if you're doing things like a time lapse, for instance. and don't want to risk the batteries dying and screwing up your time lapse. This is the battery compartment lock unlock switch right here, and it just takes 6 AA batteries. Some notes on the Pentax 645N2. It feels like a modern 35mm SLR, contemporary for its age 35mm SLR. It has similar ergonomics and handling to modern Pentax bodies, but this switch here is different, which is wonky if you're used to shooting a modern Pentax DSLR. That takes some getting used to. But in terms of handling and feel, it feels about like a K3 or a K5. And honestly doesn't feel that much heavier. It's a little bit heavier, but doesn't feel like it's that much heavier than the modern Pentax DSLR. A really nice feature on this is its ability to imprint exposure data into your 120 film. So if you're learning photography, this turns out to be a really good camera, spendy but good, because you can look at an individual negative and say, that one turned out really well. Okay, those were my settings. That one turned out really badly. Oh, I see what I did. I didn't have a fast enough shutter speed or large enough aperture, whatever the case may be. So some things not to do with your camera. Don't touch the shutter curtain. Don't stick your finger in the shutter when it's open. That's a really good way to brick an otherwise perfectly good camera. Don't touch the mirror inside the shutter box when the lens is off. You can see the mirror right in there. Don't touch that because it's surface coated silver, and fingerprint oil and things like that will cause the silver to tarnish and degrade your optical quality and ability to focus properly inside the viewfinder. Don't leave your camera or lenses in your car because they can get heat damage in the summer, which will cause oils in them to get thin and get to places they shouldn't be and cause the camera not to work properly, especially with lenses. And also in the winter, if you're in a place that gets cold, the cold will cause the oils to freeze, and then when they thaw out, they'll start to break down, which causes them to get thick and gummy. Leaving your camera in your car can also get it stolen, especially a nice camera like this. I actually know someone who had his 645N2 stolen out of his car. It's a good way, leaving your camera in your car, to destroy or lose a good camera. Don't store your gear in a plastic bag unless you have a good desiccant pack in it that you change or recharge frequently. Same thing for plastic boxes. Moisture can get in there, and then fungus will grow on your lenses and inside your camera, and that's a bad situation. Don't let your camera get wet because it's a good way to ruin an otherwise good camera. And just remember, your camera, your Pentax 645N2 is a precision tool and should be handled with care and respect. And as long as you take care of your camera will take care of you. So if this video was helpful, please give me a thumbs up. That lets me know I'm on the right track and that I'm producing content which is helpful to you. If you have questions about this camera or photography in general, please leave me a comment. I'm pretty good about responding quickly. If you have thoughts or suggestions about this video or future videos, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to address those and integrate them. In fact, a lot of what we cover in these videos comes from suggestions that viewers have made about additional content that could be added. And one last thing, thank you guys for watching, and take great photos.